What if I told you that in 1518, hundreds of people in a German city danced themselves to death? And I mean literally. They couldn't stop dancing until they collapsed from exhaustion, and some never got back up. This isn't some medieval legend or fairy tale. This actually happened, it's well documented, and it's one of the most bizarre mass hysteria events in recorded history. I'm Hostname, and today we're diving into the dancing plague of Strasbourg. A story so weird that if you put it in a movie, people would say it's unrealistic. Let's set the scene. It's July 1518 in Strasbourg, now part of France, but back then it was part of the Holy Roman Empire. Think narrow cobblestone streets, half-timbered houses, and a population of about 20,000 people living in what we'd consider pretty harsh conditions. This wasn't exactly the best time to be alive. We're talking about regular famines, disease outbreaks, and the constant threat of war. People were stressed, malnourished, and deeply religious, which becomes important later. But here's where our story gets weird. On July 14, 1518, a woman named Frau Troffea stepped out of her house onto a narrow street and just started dancing. Now, this wasn't some joyful celebration. Witnesses described her movements as frantic, almost violent. She was sweating, exhausted, but she literally could not stop moving. Her husband tried to drag her inside. She broke free and kept dancing. Hour after hour she danced, all day, all night. Neighbors gathered to watch this bizarre spectacle. Some thought she was drunk, others whispered about demonic possession. But here's the truly disturbing part. She didn't stop. For 6 straight days, Frau Troffea danced in that street. She barely ate, barely drank, and when her exhausted body finally collapsed, her feet kept moving. And then others started joining her. Within a week, about 30 people were dancing. Within a month, historians estimate around 400 people were affected. But this wasn't like a flash mob or some coordinated event. These people genuinely believed they couldn't control their bodies. They described hearing music that wasn't there, feeling compelled by some invisible force. One witness wrote, "They danced day and night until they fell down exhausted. Then they were carried away, and as soon as they recovered, they started dancing again." The local physicians were baffled. This didn't match any known disease. The dancing seemed to spread through sight. People would watch the dancers, try to help them, and suddenly find themselves unable to stop moving. Parents locked their children indoors. The city's economy ground to a halt as more and more people joined what was becoming a citywide nightmare. So what did the authorities do? Well, they consulted the smartest people they could find, doctors, scholars, city officials, and these brilliant minds came up with a solution that was spectacularly wrong. They decided the dancing was caused by hot blood. Basically, they thought people's blood had been overheated by the summer weather, causing an imbalance in their bodily humors. And their cure? More dancing. I'm not kidding. The city council hired professional musicians and opened up guild halls, reasoning that if people danced harder and longer, they'd sweat out all the hot blood and be cured. As you might expect, this made everything infinitely worse. The dancing became more frantic. People were collapsing left and right. Some died from heart attacks, strokes, or pure exhaustion. The official musicians played faster and louder, thinking they just needed to help people dance it out of their systems. It was a medical disaster based on completely wrong assumptions about how the human body works. Finally, after watching people literally dance themselves to death, the religious authorities stepped in. They had a very different theory about what was happening. The priests declared this was divine punishment. Specifically, they blamed Saint Vitus, a Christian martyr who, according to legend, could inflict a dancing curse on sinners. So they organized a pilgrimage. The afflicted were taken to Saint Vitus's shrine outside the city, where they prayed for forgiveness and redemption, and it worked. Sort of. Within days of the religious intervention, the dancing stopped. People gradually regained control of their bodies. The plague that had terrorized Strasbourg for over a month just ended. So what actually happened? Modern historians and medical experts have several theories. Mass psychogenic illness, basically collective hysteria. When people are under extreme stress, famine, disease, social upheaval, sometimes communities can develop shared physical symptoms with no medical cause. Ergot poisoning. Ergot is a fungus that grows on grain, especially during wet years. When consumed, it can cause hallucinations, seizures, and uncontrollable muscle movements. Some historians think contaminated bread might have triggered the initial outbreak. Religious ecstasy gone wrong. The medieval world was intensely religious, and ecstatic dancing was sometimes part of religious practice. This might have been a spiritual practice that spiraled out of control. The truth is probably some combination of all these factors. Stressed, malnourished people in a deeply religious society, possibly affected by ergot poisoning, creating a perfect storm for mass hysteria. And here's the really wild part. This wasn't a one-time thing. Similar dancing plagues occurred throughout medieval Europe. Aachen, Germany in 1374, several outbreaks in the Netherlands during the 15th century, various incidents across France and Germany, each followed a similar pattern: sudden onset, community spread, bizarre dancing behavior, and eventual resolution through religious intervention. The dancing plague of 1518 left a lasting mark on European culture. It inspired artwork, literature, and even gave us the term Saint Vitus's dance, which was used to describe certain neurological conditions well into the 20th century. More importantly, it represents one of the best documented cases of mass psychogenic illness in history, helping modern researchers understand how psychological and social factors can manifest as very real physical symptoms. The dancing plague of 1518 reminds us that history is full of events that seem impossible until you realize they actually happened. It shows us how communities respond to crisis, how authorities can make situations worse with good intentions, and how the line between physical and psychological illness isn't always clear. In our age of viral videos and social media, maybe we're not so different from those medieval citizens of Strasbourg. We still have mass hysteria events. They just spread differently now. What do you think caused the dancing plague? Ergot poisoning? Mass hysteria? Divine intervention? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed diving into this bizarre piece of history, make sure to subscribe for more stories that prove reality is often stranger than fiction. I'll see you in the next video.